that are moderated by the best in each field, providing second to none information for your benefit. Hyper Community will foster networking that will bring together faculties, local students, regional students, and professionals onto a platform dedicated solely to your success. Best of all, it is free for all students. Go now to www.hyprcommunity.com and sign up today. Hyper Community. Learn, grow together. Hyper Community is brought to you by Hypr Jamaica.
Hey guys, today our topic is pharmacodynamics, or at least part 1. At the end of this video, you should be able to define the concept of a drug, define pharmacodynamics, list the types of receptors and their known function, understand the principles of drug-receptor interactions, and apply the concept of dose-response relationships to clinical scenarios. The Food and Drug Administration defines a drug as a substance used in diagnosis or as a component of medication. Now, let's get into it. Today's topic is on pharmacodynamics. What is this? Pharmacodynamics is concerned about the effect of a drug at its site of action, the dose-response relationship of the drug, and the influence of other factors on the drug effects. Drugs have various targets of action. These include receptors, enzymes, DNA, ion pumps, and carrier molecules. The most important context of this video is the effect that the drug has on receptors. What are receptors? Receptors are like the little sensors of your body and are responsible for coordinating various systems that take place in your body. Drugs can act on these receptors and effect changes in the body. Receptors are protein components of the organism that binds the drug and initiates this effect. We have two types of receptors, intracellular and extracellular receptors. Nuclear receptors are intracellular receptors, and as the name suggests, these receptors are formed in the nucleus of the cell. When acted upon by certain chemicals, they carry out gene transcription. Now, recall that transcription is responsible for protein synthesis. Proteins would include enzymes and hormones that exert several effects on the body. Now, think for a second. What substance do you think could pass the cell membrane and enter the nucleus of a cell? You guessed right. Substances that are highly lipophilic. These include steroid hormones such as estrogen or testosterone, which are made from cholesterol. Under extracellular receptors, we have the following. There are G protein receptors. Now, these receptors are the most abundant in your body. These G proteins contain three subunits: the alpha, beta, and gamma subunits.
Hey guys, some persons were saying they're not hearing too clearly. Can you hear me clearly right now as I speak? Wonderful. So we'll start definitively in about 4 minutes. Don't forget to participate in the challenge.
We are excited to be partnering with faculties, consultants, residents, doctors, and other professionals to bring you groups and live topical forums that provide rich content that are moderated by the best in each field, providing second to none information for your benefit. Hyper Community will foster networking that will bring together faculties, local students, regional students, and professionals onto a platform dedicated solely to your success. Best of all, it is free for all students. Go now to www.hyprcommunity.com and sign up today. Hyper Community. Learn, grow together. Hyper Community is brought to you by Hyper Academics Jamaica Limited.
Okay, good evening, guys. Just going to put up my definitive PowerPoint for us to start. Happy to have you. Remember the nice little challenge that we've put up there for you, which is basically to take a picture of this page, post onto Instagram, and tag us at Hypacademics. And you can also follow us, but the challenge is really just to share us onto your story and tag us. Okay, so good evening once again to everybody joining us on Zoom and also those who are joining us on YouTube. And of course, we give a shout out to those who will be watching the recording of this session. Welcome to our first webinar, first of many webinars to come, where basically as hyperacademics, we seek to foster our mission, which is basically to enlighten you as students and to create as many opportunities as we possibly can to ensure that your surgeon here with us, and by us I mean in medical school, is one that is smooth sailing, one that is filled with as little challenges as possible, and one where every single person can prosper, every single person can succeed. My name is Devon Malcolm Brewster. I am a third-year medical student, class of 2022, but I'm here mainly in my capacity as Managing Director of Hyperacademics Jamaica Limited, the #1 choice for you as students to basically guide you towards getting that A and to becoming a successful doctor. So welcome to this, our first webinar. We have with us two wonderful speakers in the person of Mr. Eric Dixon, 2018 UWI top matriculant and 2019 and 2020 head of anatomy for the UWI Surgical Society. And we also have Dr. Rochelle Smith, who has the distinguished privilege of and bragging rights of being the 2019, one of the 2019 UWI Mona valedictorians. And she's also currently a senior house officer at the University Hospital of the West Indies. And I think if my memory serves me right, she's also a past US president, University of the West Indies Surgical Society. So we have very capable presenters here for you this evening, and I am your host. So just to give you a brief outline of what exactly we're going to do today, of course, we've just completed the welcome. I am going to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Eric Dixon, and then we'll have a little word from the organizers, Hyperacademics. I will be bringing you that brief word before we transition into the riveting presentation of Dr. Rochelle Smith. And at the end, we will be taking your questions, okay? Definitely, I want everybody to grab out a pen, a paper, anything to take notes, but also make note of your questions that you can ask. I want to encourage you, you can unmute your mic at the particular time to ask a question. If your mic not working or you're so shy, you can send it in the chat. And I'm sure the hosts, the presenters are definitely willing to definitely willing to answer your questions. Okay, so without further ado, and I'm going to ask Eric Dixon to prepare to share his screen as soon as I am done. We have Mr. Eric Dixon, who is a brilliant young man, a Jamaican young man who has excelled academically over the years. If you just Google Eric Dixon, you should be able to find that this bright youth was able to cop some 23 subjects in CSEC and CAPE. with 22 grade ones. So he's a very intelligent young man. He matriculated into the University of the West Indies in 2018 as the top matriculant. That means he was the person in that year to enter the university with the best grades. He has also been privileged to make the Dean's List in the Faculty of Medical Sciences for his second year. But I don't want to make him sound like all he is academics, because Mr. Dixon is a very well-rounded young man. He is very active on his hall. You know, they claim to be the Hall of Halls, but I don't really know about that. But he is a chancellor man, big up all the chancellor men in here. But as I said also, he is very active with the UE Surgical Society and served in the last academic year as the head of anatomy. And so we have no one perhaps more fitting, a medical student, to bring to you how best to study anatomy. Without further ado, I'm gonna invite you, Eric, to share your screen and get it going.
All right, hey guys. Thank you everyone for that somewhat detailed and sort of embarrassing introduction. But anyways, I'm Eric Dixon. I'm a third-year medical student, and my goal for the webinar is to highlight some strategies and tips I employ in my own studying, and hopefully it can help you as you transition from high school or undergrad to medical school. All right, so let us begin. All right, so my 2 cents on studying anatomy, and from the reviews or from the messages that I've seen in the first year group chat, I can realize that this is somewhat of a problem for you guys, because you're not used to the system of studying all these, like the heavy volume of content. So let's break it down and let's see how best we can get you guys built up so that you can understand it better. So here it is. So anatomy, what is it? No, it is formally known as the muscle system, and what you're really required to learn semester is the bones, muscles, nerves, and arteries. So you're really going to be focusing on your upper limb, your lower limb, your pelvis, some structures of your back, but nothing new. And how much do you need to know? It is quite a lot. I won't lie to you. It is a lot of information that you must digest, but what you need to know is that you have to go about digesting information in a systematic manner, and that is what I'll try to break down in my next few points. Now let's go into some tips. Now, firstly, before I get into the meat, into all those tips, you must understand that anatomy is a lot. It is a lot of content. It is a whole lot. And in high school, you may have learned a topic today and understood it by tomorrow and at the same time, and you remember the same time, but anatomy is not so forgiving, right? So you won't learn something today and remember it, and you must know that even when you learn it today, you won't remember it today. You mustn't beat yourself just because you don't remember it. You will remember it eventually. All right. So the first point I must emphasize is that you must be patient with yourselves. It is a marathon of content. It is not a sprint. You're not going to learn everything. That this week you guys learned like what, skull and some bones or such. You're not going to learn everything this week. You have 13 weeks ahead of you to get done. All right. You have more than enough time to learn everything. So you must be patient with yourself. You must understand that it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. All right. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you can't study it brute force. Well, I mean, you can, but you'll be mean to yourselves. So can't study anatomy brute force. Because again, it is a lot of content, so you have to go about it in a systematic manner. And that doesn't just apply for medicals, for anatomy. It applies for all of your courses that you'll embark on during your 5-year. Okay, all right, great. So I hope these tips and strategies will be things that you'll employ along your 5-year journey that you're here. All right. So you can't study anatomy in a, brute force. You can't just read your last and just expect to know everything. You can't just swat the muscle tables and expect to learn everything. So what I'd advise you guys to do is listen to this, and I hope you write it down, but listen first. So the first thing that you need to do when you approach any of these things is that you must get an understanding of the bones first. All right. So take a journey with me. Let's say you're learning about the muscles of your scapula, right? So you're learning about your subspinatus, infraspinatus, your supraspinatus, etc., etc. Now, you can't just get up and read about the muscles, because if you open any anatomy textbook, they're going to tell you that the muscle inserts on that place on the bone. Now, you don't know where that place is on the bone. So the first thing you need to do is to learn the bones. So you must learn the parts of your bones. That's the very first thing. So if you're going to be dealing with the muscles of the pectoral girdle, then you need to learn the bones of the pectoral girdle first. So you would start with your scapula, you would start with your, the upper part of your humerus, and you would learn all the little details on the bone, such as where is my head of my humerus, where is the anatomical neck, the surgical neck. Those are the little things that you need to learn first. So you need to have a deep understanding of the bones and the little grooves and notches on the bones. Then the next thing you do, because you're building a foundation, right? So the first thing is the bones. You need to learn your bones. The next thing you do after that is build up. So you learn your muscles. And whereas you can actually, like just swat all this information from your muscle tables, because I believe some of these muscle tables have it broken down quite nicely from bones to muscles to nerves to arteries. But I would that is more of a how should I say, a memorization tool rather than a learning tool. All right. So the first thing you need to do, learn your bones, then move on to your muscles. Now, remember that anatomy isn't a theoretical subject. You need to see these things. It's practical. And I know that it's difficult during our whole COVID climate, but you must find ways to see these things, to see these details practically. So after you get your bones, now you move on to your muscles. And there are several resources you can use. One on YouTube that is really popular among medical students is Acklands, and it shows you all the dissection of the muscles, and it's a very good resource. All right. So once you move from the bones, now you get onto the muscles, you learn your origins and your insertions, and that's the general thing. Now, after that, you need to learn what supplies these muscles, what gives them the power. The power comes from the nerves, right? So we need to know what nerves innervate them. Now, to save yourselves a lot of trouble, I just tell you guys, just go learn the brachial plexus before you even try to figure out the innervations of all these muscles. All right. So you move from bones to muscles, then you can go on and learn your brachial plexus, and that will make your life easier when it comes on to remembering the various innervations for all these structures in your upper limb. All right. Now, after that, now you can begin to fill in the details. So you can learn the arterial supply, which is pretty general and very simple. Then you can move on into your venous drainage and lymphatics. Now, those two tend to go together, so you can just study them in one go. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, yeah. So that's it really. It's really straightforward. Try to prevent the information overload and take it one step at a time. All right. So what you should start with is learning your clavicle, learning your scapula, learning the sternum, right? That's what you need to start. We need to learn those aspects of the bones. Then you start with learning the muscles. Then you move on to learning the muscles of the pectoral girdle. So you move on to your pec major, you move on to your serratus, and you move on to your infraspinatus, your supraspinatus, your trapezius, your latissimus, the muscles you begin to learn. Then after you learn the pectoral girdle, now you can move on into the arm. So the arm now would consist of your humerus. And then when you learn the humerus now, you learn the muscles on the humerus, which is your triceps, your biceps, your coracobrachialis, your brachialis, etc. And then you move on to learning your ulna and radius. Then you learn the forearm muscles then you move on to learn the bones of the hands, and then you learn the muscles in the hands. So you see that? It is in a systematic matter. You can't be doing it brute force, and you have to have a method to the math, because the way how you is how the information is stored in your brain, and the way the information is stored in your brain is the way you will retrieve it time to do your exam. So if you don't study it properly, you won't store it properly, and if you don't store it properly, you won't retrieve it properly. All right, that's a really big point I want to get across. If you don't study properly, you won't store it in your brain properly, and if you don't store it in your brain properly, you won't retrieve it properly. All right, so you have to study in a strategic manner, so that when you pull up the file in your brain and you open up your brain and the question say scapula, or you say pectoral girdle, you can see immediately, the bones of the pectoral girdle come to your mind immediately. The muscles of the pectoral girdle come to your mind because you study it in a strategic manner. So you start with your scapula, your clavicle, your sternum, and the first few ribs. Then you move on to learning the muscles of the pectoral girdle. Then you move on to your humerus. You learn the muscles of the humerus, which is the arm muscles, which is your triceps and your biceps. And you move on to learning the radius and the ulna, and then you learn the muscles that surround those two bones. Then you move on to your carpal bones, your metacarpals, etc., which are the bones of your hands, and then you learn the muscles in the hands. All right. So it's a very strategic, and it will save you a whole lot of time. All right, and it save you a whole lot of stress. All right, and that is what we're trying to prevent here. We want the easiest way possible. We want the smartest way possible to study, because med school is hard enough. You shouldn't make your study methods hard as well. All right. And so next point. So even though it will make you feel doctory, I know it's not a word. Precisely, Carol. So even though it will make you feel doctory, please don't spend all your time studying anatomy. Now, this is a very big point. Now, you see, the thing with locomotor or musculoskeletal system is that you have a lot of, how should I say, repetition for it. Because one, you learn your lectures. Two, you go to your tutorials where they teach you these things in detail. Three, you go to UIS. So you see, already you have so much repetition for this one subject. You don't get half the repetition for other subjects. All right, like literally, the most you get for the other subjects is just a lecture. You don't get anything else. You have a lot of resources at your disposal for anatomy. So don't spend all your time learning anatomy. And I know it is the one subject in first semester that will make you feel doctory, because, when somebody asks, what I learned in med school, you can tell them, oh, your brachial artery runs like that, then it go down there, so then it cross a nerve there, and it make you feel nice. But the reality is that when it comes on to your exam, you're going to say, oh, this is what I wasted my time studying for, because the reality is that most of you are going to get A's in anatomy. So don't waste all your time because otherwise you won't. Yeah, so don't waste all your time learning anatomy. All right. And I have a next big point, but I guess that's in the next slide. And the next thing now is use up the resources. All right. So anatomy is a practical subject, guys. You just expect book and get and perform very well at it. It is a practical subject because you'll have demonstrations, as in, at the end of the semester, you're going to have your OSCE, where you will have to, go around and identify structure. So it's a very practical thing. You need to be seeing specimens. Again, I know this is hard during the whole COVID thing, because, we would just go to the lab and, play with the specimens, but you guys would have to find other means. As I said, ACLANS is a really good tool to use. You can also, there's a website, I think you can ask your med students for it, that they use during the COVID period to study for their exams. It was a really good tool, and I'm not remembering it right now, but I think it was a bank of specimens from a university in particular. So you can ask the second years for it. That's what they used earlier on during the COVID period. A next big resource I can tell you to use is UIS. Use up UIS. Your second year med students will tell you that UIS helped them a whole lot, because that is what UIS does. UIS incorporates a lot of how should I say, active methods in teaching. So there's a lot of questioning. there's a lot of prompting, there's a lot of getting you to understand these concepts. All right. So use up UIs to the best of your ability. At the end of the semester, you can watch when you've learned the majority of the content, then you can watch Garner videos later on down in the semester around November thereabout, and it gives you a nice recap as to what you learned throughout the semester. All right. So before I move on to the next slide, I just want to emphasize, don't be, afraid of anatomy. It will probably be one of your best grades in the entirety of med school, and you will do well at it. I can guarantee you that. It might not feel like that at the moment because, it's so heavy, but you just have to understand that it's a day-by-day process and it's a step-by-step process. All right. One thing I will say again before I move on is, even though I said it's a marathon, please don't move too slow because I think upper limb finished teaching about week 7, and then you have lower limb to learn, and lower limb has a next, set of nuances to it, and it takes a bit of time. But most students are still learning upper limb up until, later on the semester, and then forget to learn lower limb. So we have a running joke between the, the senior students in med school. We say that, foot isn't important. Nobody's foot will ever get sick because, we barely spend any time to learn it. So, so even though I said it's a marathon, you still need to, keep a consistent pace so you can learn your foot so that when somebody comes in sick with them foot, you can know what's wrong with it. All right. So, yes. Skipping the slide. All right. So I know our next big burning question out there is, how do I use last? Last is madding me. And I will say this to you. Personally speaking, I don't like last. I appreciate it for what it is. It is a very good resource, but I think it makes the lives of medical students too difficult. So my residents, when I was in first and second year, introduced me to this good book called Sings. So I will give you an unbiased comparison, not so much. The point is, I will try to give you an unbiased comparison between both books. And what I did here was pull up the same topic from both books. So I pulled up Pec Major from the last, which is on our left, and then I got the Pec Major from Sings, which is on our right over here. Now, we see when you're just coming into anatomy and trying to, it's like, all right, let's say I attempt to read this paragraph right now, I will understand what it is saying. But you see, when you're just coming into anatomy and you don't have a foundation in the anatomical concepts, or you don't know where things are, then it can make your life, a living hell. Because it's going to tell you over here that the clavicular head arises from the medial half of the anterior surface of the clavicle. Like you were reading that might sound like madness to you, right? No, trick to this, as they normally say, is pair your last with your netters. All right. So on this slide, you will see that we have the pictures here. What you'd have to do is open the netters, and then, so this is a Pec Major right here. This is the Pec Major. So what you'd have to do is open your netters like this, look at the Pec Major, and then you go back and read what it is saying, last. And for a lot of persons, that can be a bit, nuanced and time consuming, especially when you're not sure about what you're reading. And the way to solve that, I would say, is to use the things to understand the concepts first, and then you can read your last for the little details when you understood, all this doctor talk and all this anatomy talk. All right. So if you look on our right over here, you'd see this good book Sings. Now, we can see that when it is describing the origin of the Pec Major, which is up here, it is literally showing you where everything is along with the text at the same time, right? So it's like a bridge between the netters and the lasts, because it has the detail of the anatomical structures plus the pictures incorporated into the book. So it makes your life a bit, easier, so to speak, because as we can, and also it is very compartmentalized. So it breaks down, you know, your insertion, it breaks down your nerve supply, it breaks down your blood supply. It includes a lot of clinical correlates. So this is a nice introductory book to anatomy. It's a nice foundation gathering book, as in foundation develop, as in to develop a foundation in anatomy, because as I said, it functions as a nice bridge between your netters and your LAS, because LAS can be a bit daunting for you guys since you're just coming into med school. It is a bit daunting. It was daunting for me in first semester. So yeah, this is how I averted it, because this is the book that the surgical residents in my first year, this is what they used to study. And they introduced it to me and said that, you know, it's a good book, and it's because it provides a nice bridge between the netters and the LAS, because it incorporates all these pictures, right? So it makes your life a bit easier. But what I will say though is, you see, once you understand what's going on in anatomy, so around November thereabout, and you understand all these things, and you know, when somebody can ask your origin, you can tell them, and you have a general idea of what these things look like, then you can start to read your LAS now, and it will seem like a breeze. And by doing that, you can pick out the little, you know, tiny details that they might bring up on your exam. All right, because LAS is what they set your exams from, but it's just that it's not a good introduction to the learning of anatomy, I would say. All right. Yeah, so somebody's asking what's the name of the other book? Yeah, thanks, Michaela. So, yeah, so as Dr. Smith said, rightly so, the exam will come from the last, as I said, but it's just that as a good introduction to the subject, the things is a nice bridge. And after you understand what is going on and you go to your tutorials and you utilize the things, etc., then you can, you know, closer down the semester, you can read through your last, identify the details and the nuances that they might bring up on your exam. All right. But yeah, so identify the little details and such that, you know, they might bring up on your exam. But the last is a very good resource, you know, it's just that it's, you know, a bit difficult to read through, especially when you just come into med school, because, you know, it's so wordy. I'll send a copy of it in the group, in your group chat later. Yeah, so that's just my comparison again. SINGS is a nice introduction to anatomy. It's nice to build a foundation from, but last is where they carry the questions from. So, you know, you just read through last after you understand what is going on, or yeah, after you understand what is going on. So you can, you know, ace your exams, which you'll ace anyways. And next thing I'll emphasize as well is make sure you're doing a lot of active recall. So the more you study, don't just study infinitely. Study and test yourself. So study this week, test yourself at the end of the week, study this week, test yourself at the end of the week. You know, you can look at the tomatoes, look at the tomatoes, answer questions, and, you know, you'll ace your exam. I'm positive of it. And to show you that you will ace your exams, I have a graph on this side. What about Gray's Anatomy? Gray's Anatomy is something I personally haven't used. I've never used that before, so I can't comment on it, but I know persons who have used it. Where can we get tomatoes? You get tomatoes from the farm. But yeah, so so as Dr. Smith is saying, Gray's is easy to digest, but not informative enough. Okay, right. So for the person who was asking about Gray's, right, but honestly speaking, SINGS is very good on details, so it's not that big of a gap between SINGS and the last. All right, so you just read SINGS, and then later on in the semester to get all your fine details, you just check out the last, because the last is really, you know, wordy and very time consuming to read. All right, so yeah, we'll get A's, guys, and this will probably be one of your best performing courses during your time here at medical school. Most of my class got A's, and to prove it, here's a graph of, I think this was class of 2K24. I think this was their performance. And as you can see, the A rate is ridiculously high. It is the highest of any course. All right, guys. So there's nothing to worry about. Most of you guys will get A's and B's and pass. So there's nothing daunting to worry about. Just as I said, be strategic about how you study anatomy. You'll get a lot of repetition from it by going to UIS and by watching your tutorials. Your tutorials are very important, guys. Your lectures, however, you might not, if you didn't pre-read, you might not understand what is going on there, but I would really encourage you to attend the lectures if you can, and also read the lecture slides, because Dr. Francis makes brilliant lecture notes on Lowalim, and I think Dr. Lodenki makes good PowerPoints. So you can really check out the lectures as well. But the tutorials is where you really learn, and is where they really explain what is going on. All right, guys. So yeah, this is the end of the discussion. Are there any questions?
Well, Eric, perhaps we would prefer to take the questions at the end.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem.
So thank you so much, Eric, for this very riveting presentation. I'm sure it was informative to the students. Guys, let us know in the chat, how did you find this presentation? Was it good? Was it informative? What did you think about it? Or should we then come again? Which one? Awesome. Love to hear it. For those on YouTube, they're saying very informative. We're ready to pass. 10 out of 10. Excellent. It was great, very helpful. Wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that. Guys, you know, we're having fun, but we're cognizant of the fact that we are under time constraints. And so just gonna bring you some important words from the organizers, of course, Hyperacademics, of which I represent. And then we will bring on Dr. Rochelle Smith. Okay, so I mean, Hyperacademics needs no introduction. You know who we are. Hyperacademics needs no introduction. You know who we are. We are the company that brought to you the Med School Kickoff, which was a historic event, an effort, a combined effort of regional student leaders from across the UWI campuses. We brought that to you, and many of you found it really helpful. Anybody in here was in the Med School Kickoff? Let us know in the chat. Any of you were there? What you thought about it? Nobody was in the Med School Kickoff? Oh, yeah man. The intention was to get you pumped and ready, and I hope, and I'm sure that many of you had that. Look around you guys. Things are not normal, you know? It's almost as if the world is falling apart. COVID-19 just mash up people's life, and you know, it's crazy out in these streets. I mean, Jamaica is just wilding. You know, it just feels like, as many people have been saying, 2020 just, you know, I don't know what to say. However, things around us are not normal. And that is exactly why, God, my slides down. 1 second, guys. Are you seeing my slide, guys? Okay, I'm gonna reshare it again. Okay. One moment, guys. Just having a little technical difficulty. Okay, should be all better now. Oh, okay, right. So back to what I was saying, you know, 2020 has been very rough on many of us, and things are just not normal. And that is exactly why we as hyperacademics, you as students, and the university on a whole cannot continue doing things as normal. And it is for that reason why we, as hyperacademics, Dr. Rochelle can tell you, Eric Dixon can tell you, Xavier Brown can tell you, we have gathered consensus on a new way to do things. Nobody else does it like this. And that is exactly what we are presenting to you tonight, what we're presenting to you this semester. And we just hope that all of you will come on board. This webinar is a testament of us doing things differently. And we hope to continue having these free webinars to keep you informed and help you ace that thing. Right, and so we've gathered consensus and we've brought to you together hyper community. Many of you here have been on the hyper community because it was very essential to the med school kickoff, and so you know what it is, a social learning network, and you'll definitely get more introduction to it as we go along. We've also put together hyper videos which we have introduced to you. If you came in early, you would have seen a clip on pharmacodynamics. That is one of our hyper videos that we've presented to you, and the preview is there, and the full video is on the hyper community. We will direct you to that. We have, for the last 2 years, had hyper papers. You know, you hear them talking about tomatoes. Hyper papers is not tomatoes. Hyper papers is dashing, yam, solid banana, good food, you know, and we'll give you some more details about that, right? So this is a screenshot of the hyper community. Everybody, you are invited to go onto the hyper community, go onto fundamentals of disease and treatment. You start pharmacodynamics this week. You start pharmacodynamics this week. Okay, so we have uploaded this video for you to get a head start. So when you enter that class, you know your stuff, you know. But the awesome thing is that we don't only just give you the video, we also give you a nice little review quiz after the video. So you can test your knowledge of what happened in there. So there's a little review question quiz there for you, right? And the good thing about it, and this is also giving you a preview into what hyper papers is like. And it's a new thing that we've a new platform that we've hosted. We're starting to host hyper papers on. And as you can see there, even as perhaps after this session, you may go onto the platform and you view the hyper video for pharmacodynamics. I think you have that lecture on Saturday, and you do this quiz. As you do it, right, you'll be able to see, okay, whether your answer was correct or incorrect, you know, and you get an explanation of why your answer is correct or why your answer is incorrect. And that is the kind of resource that we're presenting to you, and we know that you will find beneficial. So how exactly does it work? So we have hyper videos, which basically are concised videos covering major and must-know topics. And we're going to release new videos every Sunday. The intention is to always be ahead of your class schedule. Therefore, on a Sunday, you will receive by about midday the videos that we think are most relevant for you to review ahead of the week, so that when you enter your lectures, you can take in as much, because you are already somewhat familiar with the content already. Okay, and as I just outlined, there will be short hyper papers after each hyper video to test your knowledge. And then we have the hyper community, which is free for all, right? The features on there that we want to highlight for use for you guys, which is revolutionary, never done before by anybody in this faculty, nowhere, is each group is going to have a designated moderator. Right, so a man by the name of Eric Dixon, for example, will be one of your moderators for locomotor, one of your moderators for pharmacology, right? And basically, and yes, you have Dr. Smith, who is one of the persons who will be moderating groups, one of the persons who will be putting together content for the hyper videos. Yes, you might see a student presenting the hyper videos, but the content for the hyper videos are created by capable professionals, as well as star students who star up the Dean's List, who know what they're about, right? On this hyper community, we'll be posting content content that is posted both by moderators as well as students. Students, when you study, you may buck upon nice images, illustrations that help you. The best thing to do when you find something that helps you is to help someone else. There will be forums on there that you can ask questions, and moderators like the excellent, highly favored Her Excellency, Dr. Rochelle Smith, will be able to answer, and you get access to these forums 24/7. Therefore, it is no longer limited to the boundaries of a 2-hour tutorial as we would have traditionally done before. You will be sitting in lectures all day, sometimes 5 hours or more, right? You don't need to go into another tutorial session for 2 hours again. After your bottom start hurting you, you sit down for so long. And that is why we've created this opportunity for you to engage with our moderators, engage with students 24/7. But then we're also presenting to you not our traditional hyper tutorials, right? But twice a week, we're going to have these hyper review sessions, which is basically sessions whereby students will be able to submit topics or aspects of topics within a given range that you wish to have us cover. Right now, the intention is that you would have watched the hyper videos, you would have read your things, you would have read your Robbins and so forth, and something may not have been clear to you and you need some clarity. Well, the hyper review sessions are what you need, right? So basically every week we will publish and say, okay, for the session on Wednesday, we'll be covering topics from this date to that date, right? And you submit to tell us what you want. Therefore, we are basically meeting you where you are and giving you what you require. It doesn't make sense to present to you the easy stuff that you grasp already. And that is basically what we plan to do, focus on the key concepts. And then of course, you have hyper papers, which is used by over 60% of students in first and second year for the last 2 years. And basically what they are, they present exam style questions, just like how the university asks them to you and everything. But the only difference is that you get feedback on what answers are correct, what answers are wrong. And basically it presents a learning opportunity, a review opportunity, and an assessment tool. You can use it to gauge how ready you are for your exam. And so these will be presented to you. You know, guys, I feel like I want to go into details, more details, but I don't think you all want to hear the more details. You all want to hear more details? Or we should just move on with life? What y'all think? What y'all think? Y'all ready for Dr. Smith? Okay, y'all ready for Dr. Smith? Man, y'all not responding, man. Yes, man. Okay, here's what. Here's the promise that I have to you. Here's the promise that I have for you. The promise I have for you is that after Dr. Smith gives her presentation, we're gonna go through the rest of the details. How that sound? How that sound? That sound good? How does that sound? Wonderful, right? So without further ado, I introduce to you sisters and brothers in hyper, Dr. Rochelle Smith, a beautiful young lady, a young lady who is the epitome of determined, motivated. She has risen above many adversity. Trust me, I'm not telling a lie, guys. Dr. Rochelle had a near-death experience, and she was able to rise above that near-death experience, but not just rising up. She rose like a phoenix, right? And she topped her class as the valedictorian for the graduating class of 2019. Even though her ailments set her back, she did not allow that to deter her. And she rose above the situation and she became a medical doctor in 2019 as one of the top students in the University of the West Indies. Dr. Rochelle Smith is known for her unique ability to present information to students in a manner that is very palatable. She's known for that. There are many doctors, right? There are many medical students and doctors in her year who can tell you from since she was in third year, she's been doing tutorials with students. You will come across in her presentation and across your journey, many of her embryology notes. She's very skilled The notes are very colorful. She has wonderful resources for clinical hematology. She's just a star. In addition to that, sisters and brothers in hyper, Dr. Rochelle Smith was the US president for the academic year of 2014 all the way to 2016, right? You know what they say, if it's nice, do it twice. She didn't even have one single term. She went for 2 terms, 2 years. And she was also head of anatomy from 2013 to 2014. And also, hear this now, and then we're gonna bring her in. Dr. Rochelle Smith also does honorary lectures at the UE Department of Anatomy. She just graduated now. She just graduated last year, right? And she has done and does honorary lectures for the UE Department of Anatomy. Without further ado, because if I have to continue singing her praises, we will not leave here tonight. We want to invite Dr. Rochelle Smith to share her screen with us tonight. Dr. Smith, there we go, man.
Thank you so much, Devon. I'm just going to get to sharing the screen so that you guys can see what I'm going to talk to you about. But it's been very exciting so far. I've been following. Very, very exciting. Give me 1 second and let me share this. All right, guys. So I hope you guys are enjoying everything so far. I'm enjoying it. Thank you so much to Devon, and thank you to Eric as well in terms of giving your lowdown for anatomy. He gave you guys some excellent tips. And for sure, as he said, make sure that you sign up to US. That's UE Surgical Society, because that is honestly, there's no other way for you to get the partnership and get the motivation of people. These are people, you know, who have done excellently in anatomy, and they are really amazing at trying to explain things from a student level, right? Sometimes I find that the lecturers and such, the issue is that they're so far away from when they were a student, and therefore the way that they bring things across sometimes is not very palatable, and that's part of the problem. And that's why we're here as hyper academics and hyper community, to try and break down that barrier, make medicine more accessible, make it more fun, make it an all-round excellent experience, because all of you can succeed. There is no one person here who is way above everybody else, right? Remember, you are coming in from being the top of your respective high schools, right? You are now a very small fish in a very big pond, okay? So this is going to be difficult these first couple of weeks, trying to find your footing. I mean, I came over all the way from England to come to UE to go to university, and you know, it was even more difficult for me. But definitely through having a good foundation in first and second year, definitely set me up moving forwards. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to study embryology. So embryology, many people move through medical school and forget how important the basics are, right? It's like building a cake without ingredients. It's like building a house without a foundation. Your foundation must be solid for you to be able to move through medical school. And that's how you're going to succeed. I can't say that there's anything particularly exceptional about me in terms of the way I study or anything like that, but my foundation was solid. And so therefore, everything else that I learned moving forwards from when we go to clinical medicine to beyond that, you know, studying for international board exams now, everything is built on a good foundation. And so therefore, that's what I want you guys to get. That's what I want you to get through the hyper community. That's what I want you to get through US and all these things. So let's talk about embryology. So embryology itself, of course, you guys know, well, you may have some idea or some understanding from before. It's a study of the development of a human being. Of course, it's embryology of every species, but we're just doing humans, right? And it includes everything from fertilization up until birth. And you may be wondering, why is it even so important? Like, what's the point in studying embryology? Surely it's just a 2-credit course that you want to pass and move through, right? But as I said, it's fundamental in your understanding of histology and anatomy. Anatomy and embryology really work hand in hand, because you can understand the way, the segregation of certain structures, why the blood supply to one part of, for example, the foregut in the abdomen is related to this blood supply, why the midgut is related to this blood supply, because it all comes down to embryology, right? So once you have a good foundation and a good fundamental understanding of that, plus the anatomy, the two of which go hand in hand, it also allows you to have a deeper understanding and foundation to the clinical sciences. And by the clinical sciences, I mean everything else. So pathology, which is the study of everything that goes wrong, and then your clinical medicine on top of that, on the things that go wrong and how to fix it, right? And for those people who have come into medical school, many people have an idea of, what particular specialty they want to do, the most glamorous of which is always surgery. Your embryology and anatomy is going to help you. You can't be a good surgeon or without a good foundation in these particular things, especially anatomy, right? It's also very important in pediatrics, naturally. I mean, most of these abnormalities that occur in embryology are going to manifest themselves first in pediatrics. And so therefore, it's very important that you understand that. So how can you study embryo? It's boring. Yes, 100%. 100%. When I first opened that Langman's embryology book, I was like, so I have to read this from front to back between now and when? And I was like, are you serious? Like, looking at it, there's no pictures or hardly any pictures. And it's just very, very small text, and I can't manage that. So how do we study it? Because we have to study it because we have an exam, right? So use different things, use different resources. Don't use the book alone, right? Remember, by the time the book is published, it's already outdated. So use other resources. Look on SlideShare. Look at the different lectures which other people have written. Look for videos to try and bring the whole thing to life, to allow you to be able to visualize, because that's very important in embryology as well as anatomy, is the ability to visualize these things. I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to have quite a good visual memory and, like a photographic type memory. And that is what helps me. But from anyone will tell you, being able to visualize something is completely different from just reading the words in the book and going, all right, so we move to the next paragraph. That's not going to work, right? Because from you read it the night before and you stay up all night, you say you're going to go to bed at 2 because you have class at 8, and you wake up and you say, boy, I don't remember what I was reading last night, but I know I got through a chapter of the Langmans, but I can't quite recall. And that's a problem, right? Once that becomes what you're reading such a volume of things, and the amount you're retaining is not as much as you wish. And that's going to happen to everybody, right? But the way I say to best recall things is, again, recall the things over and over again, but use different methods to study as well. So what are the recommended texts? So you'll know that the Langmans, Medical Embryology, that book on the left-hand side, just how like Eric was talking about last, I did not like Langmans at all. And so therefore, I did not use Langmans at all, right? I used Developing Human. And that's the one on the far right-hand side. And why did I use that one? Because it was clinically orientated. It gave me the clinical, how this relates to a real person, and that was important for me because it was hard for me to study those things in isolation and not see how this has an impact on a living human being, right? So for me, that was a great book. It's available online. You can get it for free. I will have to try and find back the link that I had used to be able to get it for free. And I will let you guys know, of course. Another one is Larson's Human Embryology. It's a little bit more digestible than the Langman's, but the Developing Human is very easy to read. Lots of nice pictures. It's just the way it's written is just much better to me personally. And that's what you'll find with most books in medical school. The recommended text may not be the one that agrees with your brain the most, okay? And that's okay, right? That's all right. It's just that you have to be able to recognize that. And, you're still going to have to use a recommended text at some point because most of the exam stuff comes from the recommended texts. But use something else for your understanding if it's that this is not making as much sense to you. So I use Developing Human to study embryology, and then I read up some of the, the core topics or whatever in the Langmans because I knew that exam questions were coming from that. So after first year, you can forget about embryo, right? Because it's one exam you have in embryology and histology. Unfortunately, no. As you move through preclinical medicine, you're going to move from just learning about musculoskeletal system, and you're going to move from system to system. As far as I'm aware, that's not changing. So you're going to learn about respiratory system and cardiovascular system and gastrointestinal system and GU system and nervous system, right? And in order for you truly to have a good understanding, especially gastrointestinal, and especially respiratory medicine, the best thing for you to do is before you even start on the anatomy, I'm talking about just before you come back to school from your break, read through the embryology of that system because it will make the anatomy so much easier. And when they start asking you questions about which one of these is derived from this, and you try remember the table that you swatted, and you can't quite remember which one goes with what. It's a second pouch or it's a second arch, right? Those are the kind of questions you're going to be asking yourself. And if you have an understanding on how the whole thing developed, you can understand that, oh, of course, this must have developed from this because look how it folded, it end up in the same place anyway, right? And it definitely helped me with then learning the anatomy because I had to learn less because I already understood like where things came from before. So as I say, how is embryology even relevant? Okay, so as I said, embryology is where everything is as it is, right? It's the first steps into the development of the body. Anatomy is then what everything looks like when the embryology is done. Physiology is how the anatomy works together. And then clinical medicine is how everything can go wrong and how you can put it right. And that's coupled with your pathology. So they're all integral to each other. And that's why you can't afford to drop one for the sake of another one, because you'll find that your understanding that you end up having, you will not have a full and wholesome understanding because there will always be a piece missing. So look here, this is talking about the development of the hands and feet in an embryo. It all looks a bit complicated and such and all of that, but that's not the point I'm making. Look how the body will develop. And you see those things there? You see the dermatomes, the same things that you're going to spend so long trying to remember. C5 from C6, 7, 8, T1, all these things. But look how the arms and legs just grew from little buds. And that's exactly how it grew, right? So there's a reason why everything looks as it is. Look at this now. This is how your legs and arms turned in. They rotated, which is why we call things medial, lateral, anterior, posterior, adductor, right? That's why we call these things these different compartments, and that's why things get these different names, because of embryology. Not convinced yet? Look at how it affects people in real life. People are born without a radius and an ulna. People are born without a humerus and a whole lower limb. People are born with clubfoot. These things are things that affect people in real life. And it all comes down to the embryology. What do we have here? This is an example of endochondral ossification. It's described very nicely in the embryology textbooks. I'm sure nobody's ever looked at it, but it's described very nicely there. And then look, you're going to have to learn about it in histology, and you're going to wonder, I have no idea what these people are talking about, proliferation zone and hypertrophy zone. It's all written in the embryology textbook. It's written there first. Here's the embryology of the respiratory system, development of the tracheal buds anterior to the esophagus. And how does this impact us? You get children who are born with things like tracheoesophageal fistula, and that has implications on their life moving forwards. Here's the embryology of the heart. Look how the heart goes from being one tube moving from top to bottom, or cephalad to caudal, right? And it folds itself in certain ways and leads to the formation of the heart as we know it. Why is this important? We end up with holes between different chambers of the heart. So you end up with vessels coming off the wrong side of the heart. And that has implications in pediatrics and why children develop certain problems and why they present certain ways. Here on the left-hand side, for all you budding surgeons out there, how the intestines form, they protrude into the umbilical cord, and they come back and they go back into the abdomen. They're supposed to settle like that picture in E, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And you get these abnormal or malrotation of the intestines in the body. And you get the pictures like on the right-hand side. And what's that? A surgical problem. And these are things that surgeons will come across. And so, and why do these things happen? Embryological abnormalities. This is the last one, I swear. Here is the embryology of the brain. Brain forming from these different pouches, right? Which have walls and have spaces, end up being ventricles and lobes of the brain and all these things. And how does this impact you? You get children who are born with no skull on top of their head, different parts of their spine or possible cranium are missing. You get your spina bifida, you get your meningomyelocele, your meningocele. All these things happen in real life. And why do they happen? Embryological abnormalities. I could go on forever, but I won't. I just want to highlight to you there is a clinical implication of all of these things. And that is why it is important, because you can't understand why it went wrong if you don't understand how it would have gone right. Okay? Am I making sense so far? Awesome. So let me tell you how I studied. How I studied in first year. Okay? Specifically, we're talking about embryology course here, right? Embryology and histology, which is probably the easiest course of all the courses that you do in that first semester of first year. I remember it being my highest grade in that first semester of first year. I think I only lost 2 or 3 marks in the whole exam because it's doable once you understand. But how do you make yourself understand? For me personally, I had to make it relevant. So you see how in those examples above, how I had to relate it back to a real life person and what happens in a real life person. That's what I had to do for myself. Because without that, it's just studying in a vacuum. And then you fail to make the connections between all of these different systems. I had to study it with other things. So, for example, especially when you move on to systems-based, I had to do learn about the embryology of the system first and then do the anatomy of the system after. So I had to study them in tandem. I couldn't do it in isolation. Pair it with your anatomy or your histology, because as I said, there are some histological things which are related to it too. Pair it or link it with reproductive biology that you may have learned from before, right? Some of you do biology in high school, at least at some point. I think you have to, right? Try, the best way to learn new things is to link it to something that you know already. When you're trying to put brand new information into your head, there's nothing to attach it to. There's nothing for you to link it in your long-term memory. So what you have to try and do is link it to something that you know from before, okay? And that's integral to just medicine in general. Question your understanding by looking up free MCQs online. There are plenty of free MCQs online. You have people studying for all kinds of exams everywhere in the world. I'm not saying specific for your exam. You can use the hyper papers and stuff for that. But what I'm saying is, you know, when you finish this particular topic or so, look up, you know, fundamentals of embryology, MCQs, free. You can search that in a Google search and you can come up with at least 5 or 6 different pages. You can just, you know, do something, learn something and test your own understanding. Compare and contrast different embryology texts. As I said, Langman's was not my friend. It's other people's friend, it was not mine. And so therefore I used Developing Human, but I always used to compare it with Langman's to make sure that I wasn't missing out something that was crucial. And make sure you treat every subject, not just embryology, but all your subjects with respect. You know, as Eric was saying, when you start in med school, people, because anatomy is such a volume and it's such a massive amount of new information and a new way that you have to learn it. People will spend all their time on anatomy, but it's one course, just one, right? FDT is like a whole 9 credits or 6 credits or however much it is, right? There are other things that are worth your time also, and you have to learn to balance, including balancing your time with your own social life, not too social, right? But you have to have a social life. You have to get involved in something else other than medicine, right? I used to play sports. I played rugby for Jamaica during the time while I was living on Hall, you know, being interactive and being a participant with things on Hall. I used to live on Mary Seco Hall, right? As my mother before me and her great aunt before her. What else? You know, if you're into music, use it. If you've never done sports or music or anything else or debating or whatever, but you have an interest in it, don't let med school consume you. Otherwise, you'll leave the place very boring and you will never be able to relate to other people. And that's a problem. You have to be able to relate to other people outside of medicine. So here are some examples of my notes. As you can see, not perfect, scribbled out marks and all these things. These are my own handwritten notes for, this is for embryology of the heart. Okay, I wrote this when I was in, first year or second year? Second year, I don't remember when we do cardiovascular system. I think it's first year, second semester. You guys can say yes or correct me or whatever. Yeah, it was so long ago now. It feels so long ago. That's like 2014, right? So I wrote these then, and they have served me all that time. And as you can see here on the upper right hand side, written in pink, in all of my notes, written in pink, at some point I have this CI, which means clinical implication or clinical indication. And what I used that to was that, like I said, that link back to a real human and how this would have an actual effect on another human being, and like clinically what you would be looking for and such, because it brought the learning of the topic to life to me. here are some a little bit better ones. These are the ones that I wrote in third year to fourth year. This is my UG embryology what do you call it, booklet. Okay. And in these ones I used to draw my own diagrams, so you would see that there are some diagrams which have my signature down at the bottom. Yeah, UG is genitourinary system, so like here and stuff. So, you know, these things are around. I know your med siblings might have them and such, but so I just wanted to show you that, you know, obviously it was something that I had to bring to life for myself. You won't always have time to write nice detailed notes like this, and don't get carried away if you don't have the time as well. But these things didn't take me much time, and so therefore that's why I have them. But you need to find the way that you guys can study, right? That's the most important thing. Find the way that you can study. It may be different from high school. You're going to take some time to find your feet. The way I studied in first and second year is not the way I studied from third year to fourth year, not the way I studied for fifth year, and not the way I'm studying for my postgraduate exams. Okay? So don't be afraid of change, and don't be afraid to adapt to this process. We're all here to help you. The whole hyper community is here to help you. And there are so many people that you can reach out to and ask for advice. So don't be a stranger. We're all here. We've all shared struggles like you. There's no one person within who has not been through what you've been through. Okay? So hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoy med school as well.
Guys, just let us know in the comments, how did you find Dr. Rochelle Smith's presentation? Was it helpful to you at all? Was it helpful? Wonderful. We want to give thanks to Dr. Rochelle Smith for taking her time to come on and to help us out and to give us her tips on how to study for embryology. At this point, we're going to open up the floor for some questions. Going to ask you guys not to leave yet, not to leave. We're not going to be here for long. Remember, I have some goodies for you guys. We have to go to the details because a lot of you are interested in the details. It's just going to take 3 minutes, but we're going to open the floor. You can ask Eric a question or Dr. Smith a question. Feel free to open your microphones. You can just raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, and we will, yeah. Okay, so someone has asked, what is Dr. Smith's specialty? What specialty should want to be? Dr. Smith, unmute your microphone and let them know, man.
So my specialty of choice is neurology. So that's a subspecialty of internal medicine. So that's what I'm working towards at the moment.
Wonderful. Okay, so how did you manage your time? I constantly feel as though I am running out of time. This is Davia Faith asking. I'm gonna ask you, Dr. Smith, to answer briefly, and Eric, you can also answer briefly as well. Dr. Smith?
For sure, I know you will always feel like you don't have enough time. But the most important thing to do, something that I learned very early on in med school, is to make sure that you plan your time appropriately. So make schedules and stuff and try and be as strict as you can with your schedules. Don't go down the rabbit hole. That's the problem with a lot of people in med school. You find a particular topic, you find a particular something that's particularly interesting, and you spend hours on that topic. You have to be a little bit more strict with yourself and say, okay, I'm going to try and dedicate 2 hours to this or 3 hours to that. But try not to stick to one topic for 5 hours. And if you find yourself getting to the point where you are stuck on a topic or you're not understanding, perhaps look for another way for it to be explained to you. Maybe a close friend has understood it, try get them to explain it to you, or look for a video, or look for something else to try and assist the way that you are learning. I think also in terms of structuring your time, make sure you leave like 1 or 2 weeks before your exam, because you're working towards the exam the entire semester. Yes, I get that. But the 2 weeks before your exam, you're going to try as hard as you can to try not to cram a lot of new information. There will always be topics you never reach, right? And you'll be looking at them with not much time left to spare. And there's no way to do it, because the way the program is structured, you will never get to everything. And don't watch the people who say, you know what, I finished all of anatomy, because there was a boy in my class who used to always say, you know, I finished all of upper limb, I finished all the lower limb. I said, oh, you did the exam then? How was it? And he'd just look at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're not done till the exam is finished. So you're always going to be working towards that exam, okay?
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. Eric, you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to add, I think that Davia is that you have a lot of time, you know, as in like, as med students would tend to feel like we don't have any time, but I'm telling you, you have a whole lot of time until the exam December. And the reason times as medical students we constantly feel like we're running out of time is that we don't have any way of tracking ourselves or tracking our progress. So we feel like we're not accomplishing anything. So what I do is that make a spreadsheet. So, and I think this is a spreadsheet that is always in everybody's class group, where they send out a breakdown of all the topics for the semester. So you'd say like FDT, and they have all the topics on the FDT. And whenever I do a topic or I read a topic, I would highlight it. And whenever I do it again, I'll change it to a different color. And if I did it again, I'll change it to a different color. And then that would help me to, you know where I am. As in know where I'm in each course. So, you know, I can say, okay, I've done 10 topics, I have 10 more to go. So it doesn't make me feel, you know, like I'm running out of time per se. And also what you need to know is that what you try to do is make your study sessions very effective versus trying to study for a certain amount of time. And I say that to say that a lot of the times persons will tell you, oh, you need to study for 4 hours in med school, you need to study for 5 hours in med school. And I personally, that is rubbish, because you can study for 4 to 5 hours and haven't accomplished anything. That's just the reality. So what you need to do is focus on trying to understand each topic off your list, off the list of topics, trying to, you know, tick off a topic as you go by. So if you can do 2 topics per day, then fine, you do 2 topics per day. But you just have to pace yourself. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you will get there. And also, a next thing that I do, as what Dr. Smith just said, I approach my semester on this framework of understanding and memorization. So I usually in a 13-week semester, I would take about 7 weeks or 8 weeks to understand the majority of the content. I won't get through all of the topics because in 1 week before exams learning. So I would try to learn like about 70 to 80% of the content. And then in the latter part of the semester, now I start working questions intensively. I start revising, repeating, and all those things. So that would help me to, you know, feel like I'm on top of things per se. All right. Yeah.
Okay, then. Okay, so we're just gonna take a few more of the questions. And for the questions that are not answered tonight, definitely, guys, in the Hyper Community group chat, be sure to join the Hyper Community group chat on WhatsApp, as well as on the Hyper Community website. We'll answer some of the questions, but just to take another question, well, Dr. Smith did indicate that she plans to do neurology. Someone says, I am reading, but when I can't retain everything, it stresses me out. Any tips? Any of the presenters want to tackle that briefly? How do you handle when you are unable to retain everything?
I think what's important in med school is to ensure that you are kind to yourself. There will always be topics that you don't get firsthand. You don't read something once and just learn it just so. There are some topics that you're like, you know, I understand it, I get it, right? But there are other ones that is going to take some time, right? So be patient with yourself and repeat. Just keep going over the things again and again. And as I said, if the particular way that you are learning something is just not going in despite you repeating it a lot. Look for something, another way to get it in. Look for somebody else to explain it to you. Look for a video, look for another book, right? Those are things that help me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. There's another question that I'm going to,
Just
yeah, go ahead.
just something to add there. Just a minute. I'm very short. So your attention, guys. Most of the time, what's also wrong is that despite you not understanding it, sometimes you can even understand, not retain, because what happens is that you guys study a passive, because you're used to the CAPE method of studying, where you just read the book for the entire year and then go to the exam. You know, you have a lot of time to learn the content that way. But you see, now you guys need to work on more active techniques, so like teaching your friends the concept. Because you might even think that you understand something, but you haven't retained it. All right, so try using more active concepts such as teaching, questioning, etc. That usually helps with information, along with what Dr. Smith said, which would help you to like understand, etc.
Thank you very much, Eric, for that. Someone asked, how do you write notes during a lecture coming from writing dictated notes in high school? I'm going to take the liberty and answer that question to say that you are blessed in the midst of this pandemic to have your lectures recorded. And since you have lectures recording, you may find it very helpful to take the time during lectures to just listen, just take the time and listen to hear the stuff. And then you can go back and look at the recordings again, where you can look at it at your own pace and write your notes. Because, for example, that's what I do. I like to make very thorough notes, and I'm enjoying the fact that there are recordings that I can go back to. So you can definitely go back to that and just read that quickly. Well, not quickly. Watch it and make your notes. Guys, we're just gonna spend 5 more minutes. That's all. Don't leave. Are you able to see my screen? Are you seeing the Hyper community website right now? Just confirm that for me, please. Are you seeing the Hyper community website on your screen? Oh, wonderful. Right, so guys, just showing you guys, when you open up the website, it's hypercommunity.com. You can register by filling out the form, or you can use your Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You're gonna back up on this dashboard. It was recently updated. So you see welcome Hyper Academic Student Relation, because that's my account. And you see quick links to your courses. These are the premium courses that we offer. Discussion forums, when you join a group, each group will have a discussion forum. So you can access it right there. And then there's also the activity feed, which basically is when anything is posted, you can see a snippet of the activity feed right there. It looks quite similar to Facebook and everything and so forth. But what I really want to show you is what I want you to do tonight, okay? To join the groups that we spoke about. Remember, we said that the groups are free. They'll be moderated by people like Dr. Smith and Xavier and Eric. Look in the right panel and go to groups, right? And then you can click on your one to see. Right now, we only have, well, this was a med school kickoff group. Join the embryology group that is moderated by Xavier Brown. Join the fundamentals of disease and treatment that will be moderated by Eric and another young lady. And then by tomorrow, you will see Locomoto. You'll also see More Med. So we'll let you know to join those, okay? And then the very last thing I want us to just touch on is the very thing that I said we're gonna get back to. So let me just share that information very briefly. I know we are over time and you need to go and prepare for tomorrow. So remember, we gave you these details. We gave you these details. We can send screenshots for you in there. But what people really are concerned about, boy, this sounds so good, almost too good to be true, but it sounds like it's expensive, don't? It sounds like it's a lot of money. Well, guys, it really isn't, And I say that knowing for sure that we are coming from a place as Hyper Academics, where when we offer tutorials for the entire semester, for all courses, a bundle package would have been somewhere like $22,000. But look at this right there, guys. We're making the Hyper videos available for you on a 3-monthly subscription at just 5,000 Jamaican dollars. or 35 US dollars. Now the thing about it is that it's not a case where that is 5,000 per course. That is 5,000 for all your courses for the semester. All your courses for the semester. So remember, we're going to be releasing videos every Sunday, and you will be able to access them for all courses. Our hyper review sessions, remember we said that every week we're going to have 2 sessions, 2 tutorial review sessions. We're going to let you know what is the deadline to submit what you want us to go through. And that is only at a cost of $1,000. Now you might be thinking, why? That is a lot of money to take out for every session. Well, the thing about it is that it's not for every session. That $1,000 is going to give you access to the sessions for the rest of the semester. So really and truly, it is a maintenance contribution. Okay, it's a maintenance contribution, $1,000. You will not find that anywhere else. Okay, and so basically, if we have 8 weeks left in the semester, or 10 weeks left in the semester, and 2 sessions per week, that is 20 sessions you're going to get. Only for 1,000 Jamaican dollars or 8 US dollars. And then you have hyper papers. Hyper papers, what in this bundle, we're giving it to you for just $1,500 or 12 US dollars. But then we make it even cheaper again by giving a special bundle that is valid until October 4, which is all of this. Your hyper videos for all courses, your hyper papers for all courses, and your 2 review sessions a week. And the total price for that is only $6,750 or 49.5 US dollars, right? Now the thing about it, guys, is that remember, we realize you sit down at your computer for 45 hours a day, right? And we really think that it is a privilege you have now to look at recordings. We want to encourage you, look at the recordings of your lectures and tutorials that the university provides. At the end of the day, the university remains the authority on information, hands down. We as hyper academics are just here to help guide you. A lot of you need that sort of guidance. And so we are here to help you and guide you. Now, in theory, just theory, if someone were to offer you the traditional tutorials, which is, the 2-hour tutorials, 1.5 tutorials for each course, let's say, you have 4 courses, but they're only doing 3 courses at about $500 per course. That amounts to about $12,000 for the semester, right? And we've been able to basically slash that in half and not only give you tutorials, but we also give you the hyper videos and hyper papers for you to continuously review, as well as the review sessions with people the likes of Dr. Smith, people the likes of Eric, people the likes of Owen Hyatt, and Xavier Brown, and these awesome people. So what you're gonna do is that the platform is not yet set up to receive payments. That will take place from Friday. But what you can do is you can go to this link, tinyurl.com/hyper without an E, hyper bundle, OCT4, and you can reserve the bundle. That means you can reserve the bundle. Once we have your name, we have your information, your price is locked, okay? So you can do that. But guys, don't leave yet. There is something very special, and I want you to really pay attention to that. At Hyper Academics, we understand the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of homes to be devastated. Families, parents have lost jobs, income is at an all-time low, and things rough. Outside of that, there are students within our faculty who they never needed no COVID-19 for times to be hard. Times have just always been hard. And so because of that, they have not been able to, over the years, access premium services, and many persons have not been able to access wonderful online premium services and so forth because they really just don't have the money. I'm just showing the page again for you to get the link to reserve the bundle, but I'm also gonna send it in the WhatsApp group. So you can check your class WhatsApp group chat for the link to the Hyper Community WhatsApp chat, and we'll also send it there. So because we understand that is exactly why we have put together this program, and by consulting doctors, students, past and present, to basically develop this program that costs about 70% less than would be normal. And that is just to show you that really and truly, our intention, our desire is to help see you prosper. But as you very well know, everything comes with some cost. And so we have to charge. But what we've done is that we are beginning to partner with corporate entities, companies, who we are approaching to offer to expand access to the premium services to students who are of verifiable need. Now, students who are less fortunate, or it may be a temporary thing because of COVID-19, they may not be able to afford. We don't believe that you should be left out. And that is why the hypr community is a free platform. Every student, and tell that to your mama, your papa, your grandfather, everybody, tell them that the hypr academics platform, the hypr community, is free. Every student should join the hypr community groups to participate in the forums and discussions. And that is the first area in which we have expanded to ensure that everybody gets access to the free services that we offer. And we know that everybody can benefit from that. But in addition to that, we have approached and we continue to approach corporate entities to sponsor you by way of providing scholarships. And so we are pleased to announce tonight that we have so far secured 5 scholarships, complements Book Jungle. Book Jungle is the #1 place to get your textbooks. They supply many students across the country of Jamaica and outside of Jamaica. They supply many of the bookstores that you purchase books from. They are the place that you will get books the cheapest. We've recommended them before. Tomorrow we're going to send out a price list on their behalf for students who really want the hard copy books. Also, Book Jungle is offering special bundle packages, discounts for students who are on the hypr community. And that is what we will be doing for you as hypr academics. So we've secured 5 scholarships, and we hope that as we go by, for sure, we hope that we could even secure 250 scholarships for everybody to get scholarships. But of course, we know that that will be a little tough given the pandemic and everything, but we will give you more information on how to apply for these scholarships. But guys, what we need you to do is that you need to be honest, right? You need to understand that if it is that you really can't afford, but you apply and you give a dishonest application, you are basically robbing someone else of the opportunity. And so we take this very serious, and we have a system of independent bodies and persons that are going to scrutinize the applications when the applications open, so you can have access to the scholarship. So in the meantime, everybody reserve the bundle, join the hypr community. From tomorrow, it's going to be kicking with activity on the different group platforms. And we just want you to have fun learning. There's no need for you to be stressed out while you're trying to become a doctor to change the world. And one of the other things that we've created, free of course for everyone, is the MedZit podcast. You can go to follow the MedZit podcast on Instagram at MedZit podcast. There is a link in the biography to the page, or if you go onto the hypr community platform, in the menu, you will see MedZit podcast. Listen to the podcast. You will hear students like yourself. As time go by, you will hear people like your dean. You will hear doctors, consultants. We have a wonderful plan to ensure that it is a program that you can listen to learn. If you have talents, if you want to tell your story, you can do so on the MedZit podcast. The MedZit podcast, yes, we operate it, but the MedZit podcast is a platform owned by all of you. It is your platform. So take a listen. If you listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, any platform, once you put in MedZit podcast, you should be able to find the 2 first episodes that are on there. Guys, I want you to go onto Instagram, follow us at Hypr Academics, our WhatsApp group. If you just put this link here in Google, then it will redirect you to the WhatsApp group. Otherwise, I'm going to send the link in your class group for you to join the hypr community WhatsApp group. And that is where you will have, we will be communicating with you when we are not communicating with you on the hypr community platform. Guys, make it your duty, in the morning, just before class, check the Hyper Community platform, see if anything was posted overnight. If you look on the, yeah, let me just share this screen one more time to just show you one thing, how to navigate this thing. If you, when you sign in and you go onto the dashboard, there, right here, you're gonna see any forum that has been created in any of the groups that you are. Any questions that I ask is gonna pop up there so you can have easy access. If you were watching a video before, you can pick up from where you left off. We're gonna be posting more blog posts that you can read and so forth, and the timeline, and you can see other members. Guys, on the Hyper Community platform, you can send private messages, you can do all of that. We want to foster community, and that is what we are all about. And there will also be students on there from other campuses. And so guys, you are in for a joyride. This is something that absolutely no medical students before has ever experienced within this faculty. And that is exactly what we are about here at Hyper Academics. And we look forward to working with you. Again, we want to meet you where you are, whether it is where you are financially, where you are academically, and the goal is to ensure that everyone succeeds. That's why our statement is your success is our mission. Guys, have a good night. We actually went over time, but was it fun? I think it was fun, but of course I'm biased. Did you find this helpful? Was it fun? I think it was a lovely experience. Did you think that? I don't want it to end, but I know it has to end because you have to go study your book. So all the best, guys. You will hear from me and hear from the others in the group chats. Have a good night. Those who are following on YouTube, thank you very much for following. Guys, also on YouTube, find Hyper Academics, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll find a recording of this session so you can send it to others. And yeah, just do what you have to do, man. All the best, guys. Guys, if your questions were not answered, definitely we will answer them in the group chats, okay? We did not intentionally overlook anybody, okay? Bye.